So friends, usually becoming a political party's nominee for president is all about winning state primaries. But maybe not this time around. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, Nikki Haley just lost the New Hampshire primary, and many in the Republican Party are calling for her to drop out of the race. But I'm not so sure she will, because who ends up being the Republican nominee for president might actually have less to do with state primaries and more to do with the legal predicaments of one Donald J. Trump. Let's start with the new reporting. This from Politico. Headline: Why the Supreme Court Could Matter More Than Iowa and New Hampshire. And that article begins, Donald Trump's convincing victory in the New Hampshire primary puts him on an easy path to the nomination, right? Not quite. Trump still has a significant hurdle ahead of him, and no amount of fundraising or voter outreach can eliminate it. He needs to win a potentially decisive showdown at the Supreme Court. On February 8th, the High Court will hear oral arguments on whether Trump is an insurrectionist who is barred by the 14th Amendment from running for president. Trump is appealing a Colorado decision that determined he was disqualified due to his actions before and during the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. If the court answers yes, and assuming that answer applies to the primaries as well as the general election, Trump can't become the Republican nominee, no matter what the primary results dictate. Most legal observers doubt that a majority of justices will declare Trump ineligible to run. A far more likely result, experts say, is that the court will find an off-ramp that will allow Trump to remain on the ballot based on a narrow or technical reading of the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause. But friends, let me hasten to add, I don't happen to be one of those legal observers who believes that the Supreme Court will necessarily give Donald Trump an off-ramp, right? Declare that even though he incited, engaged in, and gave aid and comfort to an insurrection and insurrectionists, he can serve as president again anyway. There are a lot of moving pieces in that Colorado case that will be argued on February 8th at the Supreme Court. The article continues, but the fact that Trump's eligibility remains in some legal doubt, even as he seems poised to sew up the nomination at this early stage, is another reminder of how Trump's unprecedented legal woes are interlaced with his political fortunes. Of all of Trump's legal troubles, only the 14th Amendment challenge at the Supreme Court poses a direct threat to his bid to become president again. Although he is also facing 4 criminal trials, the timing or circumstances of each of them seem increasingly unlikely to derail his campaign. 2 of those cases consist of federal charges brought by special counsel Jack Smith, one over Trump's efforts to subvert the results of the 2020 election, and the other regarding his mishandling of classified documents. Both of those cases are scheduled to go to trial this spring, but the dates are almost certain to get postponed, possibly until after the November election. Even if they do take place this spring or summer and Trump is convicted, he can still run for president as a convicted felon or even from behind bars. And if he becomes president, he can seek to pardon himself in either federal matter. That leaves his 2 other criminal cases, both on the state level, one in New York and one in Georgia. The New York trial over Trump's alleged falsification of business records connected to hush money payments made to silence affair allegations from porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign is set to begin in late March. Trump's fourth criminal case is in Georgia, where he has been indicted on racketeering charges for his attempt to overturn the 2020 election by subverting Joe Biden's victory in the state. The Georgia trial is yet to be scheduled, meaning it may not take place before the November election or possibly the inauguration. So friends, can we focus for just a minute on Nikki Haley and what she might do now that she lost in Iowa, she lost in New Hampshire? Now, you've heard me say before, I am not a political analyst. I'm not a political expert. I don't even try to play one on TV. But I like to think I'm an informed voter. And as of right now, the race for the Republican nomination for president is a two-person race. But guess what? Donald Trump could get kicked off the ballot by the Supreme Court, right? 2 states have already disqualified him, and it will be up to the Supreme Court to see whether they want to try to set up circumstances where they can help Donald Trump regain the reins of presidential power. Donald Trump, who has announced he'll be a dictator on day one, and a dictator has no use for a Supreme Court. So don't think the Supreme Court will not be inclined to act from a place of self-preservation. I am not one of those legal observers who believes the Supreme Court will absolutely rule that he should remain on the ballot even though he engaged in insurrection. That would be the Supreme Court cutting off its nose to spite its face. They may go that way. We'll see. But you know, there is a reason I believe Nikki Haley will stay in this two-person race, because either the Supreme Court kicks Donald Trump off the ballot, or Donald Trump may very well go to trial, be convicted, and be imprisoned. And do you really think the Republican Party wants somebody at the top of their presidential ticket who is a federal inmate? You've probably seen some of the reporting and some of the polls of Donald Trump supporters who say, well, you know what? If he's a convicted felon, I'm not going to vote for him. I think for all of these reasons, Nikki Haley will not drop out of the race. She will wait in the wings. She will bide her time. You know, she may win a primary here or there, or she may not, but I really don't think it is the state primaries that will necessarily decide who the Republican candidate for president is come November 2024. But if it's Nikki Haley, here's the good news. Never forget that Nikki Haley also supports revoking women's constitutional privacy rights to make their own reproductive health decisions. So, you know what? Let Nikki Haley be the Republican nominee, because hopefully women and men will go to the polls, yes, in numbers too big to rig and too real to steal. And whether it's Donald Trump or Nikki Haley, I believe that the next president of the United States will, again, be Joe Biden. And if you care about women's rights, minority rights, LGBTQ plus rights, equal rights, civil rights, human rights, then get out and vote in favor of all of those things. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.